Who's that coming down the track? Who's that coming down the track? It's a mean machine in red and black. Mean machine in red and black. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Ain't nothing finer in the land. Them drunk obnoxious Georgia men. Them drunk obnoxious Georgia men. Go, go! Go, go!
What's up, y'all? This is John, Mike, and Caleb back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. Tonight, we are talking about which team we think should replace Tennessee if they get kicked out of the SEC.
Please do this, SEC. Please.
I prayed for times like this.
I'm going to go through a little bit of why the Tennessee may get kicked out of the SEC. We're going to talk a little bit about the regional Georgia has that starts tomorrow for us when you guys are hearing it today, yesterday, around that time frame. Anyway, starts on Friday, 12 o'clock noon, and that was a very long foul ball by the Phillies. Nope, was that a home run?
Please be a foul ball.
Yeah.
I don't like the Phillies.
Well, they still have it as 0 and no home run, and it landed to the left of the foul pole. So he just took a jog around the bases to get back in the batter's box, and he deserves it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Anyways, we're going to talk a little bit about the regional. We're going to talk about just some things that have been going on through SEC coaches meetings, what little bit has come out about that. And most importantly, I believe Mike has something he wants to share with the group.
Yeah.
Kind of a project for me since the day that it happened, but I want to say a moment of silence and well, I'm not gonna say this next part, but for our sweet prince who we lost 9 years ago this week. So in honor of our sweet prince, I'm going pantsless the rest of the pod.
Same.
And you have to do the rest of the podcast standing up. We're getting completely canceled.
Well, good thing that
it was
my mic will
I
block
believe we're referring to the person who got the third place in the 2016 presidential election, right?
I believe so. Yes.
I had so many people say, "Were you one of the assholes that voted for Harambe in that election?" I'm like, no comment.
No comment.
Speaking
of getting canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Caleb, you also had something you would like to share with the class.
Yeah, I have a couple of things I would like to share with the class. First, a positive note that's actually about Georgia, because it is a Georgia-centric podcast a little bit, even though we do talk about everything else. Not a whole lot of Georgia in this episode, so I just wanted to bring up. You talked about the spring pressers that have been going on for the SEC. Kirby has been really excited.
He's been
about
on
Gunnar
a heater.
Stockton.
He's been on a heater.
He has been on a heater. The whole segment with Paul Feinbaum made me so happy. He is talking up Gunnar Stockton like crazy, while also pointing out that every single media outlet in the world is trying to act like Gunnar Stockton has never touched a football in his life. And I am here for it. Stetson Bennett has taught us that regardless of talent, which Gunnar Stockton has in spades, people forget he's a 5-star dude for a reason. Regardless of talent and regardless of height, if you can run somebody over on the Texas defense and talk a little trash in a game you were not expected to play in, my expectations for you go up, because heart means a lot for a quarterback at the University of Georgia, and we have seen it before. But as Kirby seems to know that too, because he is seemingly all in on the guy. While everyone's trying to pretend there's some quarterback controversy between him and Puglisi, Gunnar's got it quite clearly. I've never heard him be this clear about a quarterback situation before.
And it's interesting that he hasn't named Gunnar the starter quite yet, but I mean he
never does. But Stetson Bennett wasn't named the starter in 2022. I don't think so.
All right, I have 2 comments. One, If you sleep on him, he'll become your nightmare.
Yep.
Nice.
Second, to kind of like, devil's advocate this argument here, is it possible that Kirby's talking him up to improve his confidence after he played two of the top three defenses in college football last year and didn't play all that well?
I think that's possible, but I think two things can be true at once. Like, I'm sure that's why he's saying these things publicly, but I do, you understand when Kirby's saying something with conviction and when he's saying something that's just Kirbyese to fill something out. I
Yeah.
think Kirby genuinely believes Gunnar Stockton is going to be great, but I do think he wouldn't be saying it publicly unless he had a reason that related to that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kirby does use the media. He
For sure.
says nothing to the media without a purpose.
Absolutely. The other thing I wanted to talk about, though, is the ACC the softest conference?
People are saying.
I would actually argue 2 years ago was the Pac-12.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay, fair.
Like the softest conference ever, Pac-12, pre-canceled.
Yeah. I say
Currently
this,
ACC,
though.
for sure.
Yeah, currently ACC. Because I say this because obviously in 2023, Florida State decided to celebrate going undefeated, which just remembering they did not. And this year, Georgia Tech got championship rings for being 7-6 and losing the Birmingham Bowl. They put the Birmingham Bowl logo on the ring, and they lost. Now, I've had people tell me, "Oh, they're just celebrating going undefeated at home this year." First of all, if that's the case, why is the Birmingham Bowl logo on the rings? Yes, but the Birmingham Bowl logo is there. And two, the Georgia Bulldogs have been undefeated for 5 years in a row at home.
34 straight home games.
And they have rings from 3 of those seasons because they won national championships and an SEC championship.
Uh-huh.
Wild.
Not to mention the number of New Year's Six Bowls.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, the ACC can just go. Florida State and Georgia Tech were being considered for the SEC at one time to segue us into our topic for the evening, but
yes,
clearly they're too soft for the SEC.
Yeah.
I will say, the Georgia Tech thing, with everything that I know based on research and, public appearances and press conferences and everything else, Brett Key did not want to give those rings to a single person.
Oh, I don't doubt that for a second.
Yeah. That was not his call. That was the collective talk to the AD, who talked to like that one kid's mom who won't quit calling the athletic director after they met at this one event like 4 years ago. And they organized it because Brett Key is an offensive lineman. I don't care who you play for. As an offensive lineman, you are a hard individual. You are not soft.
Oh yeah, and I let me make clear, if I hadn't made it clear already on this podcast, I respect the hell out of Brent Key. He is the only person over on North Avenue I respect, but I respect him.
Yes. Buster Faulkner, he's on that list.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that's fair. Okay. Yes.
2.
Future Georgia OC. Yeah.
Yeah. One can only hope.
Yeah.
All right, so we are going to get into the why Tennessee may be kicked out of the SEC. And so it's typical Tennessee drama, if we're being entirely honest. Tennessee has used lawfare to kind of get their way in college football a number of times, specifically with their current athletic administration. But basically, the House settlement said that, like, hey, athletic departments have $21 million to pay all their athletes for their scholarship sports. Doesn't matter where you spend the money. This is your pool of money. Every school has it. You can't go over it. You can go under it. And because federally that's a law, but not state-wise, every state has had to make and adopt laws saying, hey, ditto.
Right.
The SEC has said that not only do the SEC schools have to have a state law that agrees with that, but they also have to sign a document with the conference saying, we agree to this. We are not going to break federal law. We are not going to break NCAA law. We are not going to break SEC law. Like, we're not going to commit multiple crimes
Yeah.
with $21,000,001, pretty much. Well, the state of Tennessee said, nah, we don't have to listen to those feds. And the University of Tennessee said, yeah, we agree with that guy. He went to school here. Vanderbilt signed the document.
Right.
Vanderbilt doesn't have a problem. They're like, yeah, we get money from the SEC. They help us. We help them. We're going to sign the document and continue to be part of this prestigious conference. Tennessee's athletic administration apparently has bought way too much in to what their fans say online and think that they are God's gift to collegiate athletics.
Yeah.
And Greg Sankey's not playing those games. Greg Sankey, known not player of games. He ain't an athlete. He ain't getting on that field.
I just want to point out, and I'm not going to say anything else, but I think you understand why this applies so well to Tennessee. One of the symptoms, one of the most telling symptoms of narcissistic personality disorder is that you think you can just say, oh, the rules don't apply to me and get away with it. Just throwing that out there.
And to be fair to Tennessee, which I feel like we have been on the podcast, specifically in the offseason regarding a lot of the things that they've done, Tennessee has paved the way for NIL to be used the way it is, and also taken away the way that it is. Like, Tennessee has been a torchbearer for the new era of college football.
A trailblazer, one would say.
Right. They're definitely blazing and flaming something. But the issue is they think they can't, that they're always going to get away with it.
Right.
To be fair, up to this point they have, specifically Jeremy Pruitt, McDonald's bag situation. They fired him and they're like, hey, we didn't know about it. Philip Fulmer may have signed a couple of those checks, but we had no idea.
Yeah. Hands up.
And they got away with that. And then the paying Nico thing, they got away with that because they decided to sue the NCAA and won.
Yeah.
And then the not paying Nico thing, they got away with that because once their fans realized that his dad was a douche, they were like, you get a pass this year. Win 8 games, you're fine.
Yeah.
And the issue is they're loud. If you're loud, you don't get away with federal crimes. You don't get away with things with the SEC. You don't. Especially if your neighbor a few hours down the road in Vanderbilt said, you know what, man, that's a great
play
idea.
ball.
We both benefit from each other. I'll sign it.
Yeah, well, you got to think though. It's a win-win for Tennessee because, they get to, spend a little more money if that's what they want to do, and they don't have to have Georgia on the schedule all the time anymore. So,
There's that. It's a win.
Okay, if we're being honest with each other, is Tennessee on the level of blue blood as Notre Dame?
Oh, of Notre Dame.
No.
I gotta say, in terms of just national brands, no. Like, they're probably as successful historically, but the brand thing is part of it.
Yeah, and so is Tennessee getting a solo deal with ESPN or Fox
or NBC or any of them? No.
Even if
CBS.
Even if they did, it's not going to be as much as Notre Dame's getting.
Yeah.
No,
can't wait to watch the Tennessee games in 480p on the CW.
That's quite literally what I was about to say. That's kind of where they're getting to, and Tennessee is known to not schedule home and aways very much. They want to play Power 5 conferences at neutral sites or at home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, think of the last time Tennessee played a major away game. It was Pitt.
Yeah.
It was
Wow. Yeah.
post Kenny Pickett Pitt.
And then before that, it was Oklahoma, right?
Yes.
And that
Yeah.
was a minute ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a
Yeah.
while. That was Baker. Right?
BYU, you could say, very big, independent at the time. So, I think Tennessee, if they do get kicked out of the SEC, I think they're going to struggle to schedule
Yeah.
teams that get them in the conversation for a playoff. Because that's the thing with Notre Dame is that a 10-2 Notre Dame, if like last year, if they went 10-2 in the regular season, with that loss to NIU, they don't make the playoff.
Right.
Like 9-3 Alabama or South Carolina gets in over 10-2 Notre Dame last year because of the schedule.
South Carolina for sure. I don't know about Bama. I mean, you can't lose to like a 6-win or 7-win Vandy team either. But I don't
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So, no, I truly think that Tennessee would be messing up pretty bad by choosing to step out of the SEC.
And I would think that the SEC schools would blacklist them. Like they wouldn't agree to stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, as long
Because of the
as Greg Sankey's
circumstances.
the commissioner, he's
Yeah,
petty.
that's not going to happen.
He is petty.
So you might as well join the ACC for that matter.
Right.
And then sign up for a 48-year grant of rights deal that you
Yeah.
can't get out of.
Yeah. And then you go 8-5 and buy your whole team championship rings for it. That's...
Whoa. Tennessee would do that for 6-6 in the ACC.
Yeah.
And they would pull a Florida State. Yeah, we don't count the bowl game. It's fine.
Yep.
But so the point of the episode tonight, kind of talk about the situation, why it would be bad for Tennessee. And normally we're all about things that are bad for Tennessee, but in this situation, I think it's just bad for the SEC in general, for the most part.
Yeah.
Because as much as we don't want to admit it, Tennessee has become an everything school.
Yeah.
A big three sports school. I don't know if I'd call them everything with the research. We'll get to that later, though. We'll get to that.
Everything as far as revenue generating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I mean, like that's a pretty big deal for the conference and for their opponents within the SEC. But we're going to go, each of us has 2 suggestions. We're going to rotate through giving the suggestions for who we think should replace Tennessee if the SEC kicks them out. So my first suggestion, I had to dig into the spirit of the Southeastern Conference.
Right.
We're talking devoted fan bases, beautiful campuses, being in the South, preppy white kids talking about things that they have zero clue about what they're talking about.
Well, that happens in California too, but
right. But they don't have the beautiful campuses being in the South and devoted
right.
fan bases, right?
Right.
And most importantly, unabashed cheating.
Oh yeah.
So I present to you the Mustangs of SMU.
Yeah.
And this primarily is based on the cheating. If I'm being honest. They are recruiting pretty well. They're recruiting better than multiple SEC schools. They've made the playoff as many times as Tennessee has.
Shoot, one year in a power or core 4 conference, they made the playoff. They made the championship game.
Yeah.
Right. They have played in a conference championship game much more recently than University of Tennessee.
Facts.
You could argue that they are set up better for the future than Tennessee because they have a quarterback this season that did not lead the SEC or that did not lead the country in interceptions thrown in 2024.
Not talked about enough.
Really not talked about enough.
But, SMU does have the history of an elite football program, the recent history of moving up from the AAC to the ACC, playing for the conference, making the playoff. But if you have not watched the Pony Express, 30 for 30, go do that because what SMU and the Southwestern Conference was doing back in the day. Who is it? Was it Eric
Yeah,
Dickerson?
Eric Dickerson. Yeah.
Yeah, Eric Dickerson apparently showed up to school each day in a new Trans Am when he committed to a new school, and grew up very poor. Like I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure he and his entire family lived in like a 2-bedroom house with an outhouse at the time, like something crazy. Like they were super poor, and he pulled up to school in a gold Trans Am, and then a silver Trans Am, and then a black Trans Am, because it was whatever school gave him the most money that day is who he committed to, and they couldn't say anything, so he just
Yeah.
had to keep all of the money.
Right.
They were so blatant with cheating, they gave them the death penalty. Like other schools that have done much worse, like I mean, Penn State did not get the death
Facts.
penalty.
Penn
They're-
State, Baylor, Michigan, all schools
Whoa,
that
whoa, whoa, whoa,
all schools that you could argue
Yeah.
deserved, if not the death penalty, some mutilation. And then, schools like Michigan, they just keep suspending their head coach for random games throughout the season, and it's okay.
We don't need you for Central Michigan and Nebraska. Everybody else, yeah.
Quick question: if South Florida got that kind of mutilation, would we call it cattle mutilation?
Or Texas.
Oh.
Or Texas?
With Texas,
Should
we
have thought
could
of
call it
Texas.
castration if they had any.
Yeah. Like most people, I thought of South Florida before I thought of Texas.
Well, South Florida is actually bulls.
Yeah.
Bulls are useful.
Yes.
Longhorns apparently aren't even good for meat. So.
Yeah.
But anyways, back to SMU. They're the only football program, in the history of college football to come back from the death penalty.
They're a religious institution.
Religious
First-
institution. Some
First
could
team
say
ever
they
to
had
come
a
back
resurrection.
from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And make the playoff.
Yeah.
They're the only football program in the history of college sports to get the death penalty, but they're still the only ones that came back from it.
Still.
It took a little bit longer than 3 days, but they came back.
Yes. Took a little bit longer than 3 decades, but they came back.
Oh.
But no, so another fun fact that I wanted to dig into, they have a former Gus Malzahn offensive coordinator as their head coach.
Mm.
Did you know that multiple former Gus offensive coordinators have made the playoff as head coaches?
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I guess they have though. Yeah.
Yep, Kenny Dillingham and Rhett Lashley have both made the playoff as offensive coordinator or as
In the
head
same
coaches.
year. I wonder. I think that's the same number as a certain other former head coaches, former assistants that were in the playoff this year. Now that I think about it.
But also, Chad Morris has coached for playoff teams.
Oh.
Fun fact.
Oh, burn.
Who was also an Auburn offensive coordinator at one point.
Man.
Well, maybe now that Gus is an offensive coordinator, maybe he can capture some of that magic at FSU.
The Gus Bus coaching tree is intense.
The Gus Bus coaching tree has a better track record than Gus does.
Wow.
Also,
What you
while we're
always
talking
want.
about coaching, this is something that I believe, Mike, you were on the podcast with me at the time. According to Brett McMurphy, College Football Hall of Fame is changing the rules
Yes. Yep.
from 60% winning percentage to 59.5% to specifically accept Mike Leach into the College Football Hall of Fame.
Go.
Hey,
Let's go.
You want to know something else that's crazy with that change? Is Les Miles is now eligible as well. Let's go.
Now they need to
venture
change the rule.
Say, based on some text that he got caught sending, he's not going to get in.
You know what they need to do next though is change the All-American rules for players so our boy Staquavius can get in there.
Nick Chubb's not even eligible.
That's insane to me.
Right.
Like the fact that the whims of some journalists can decide who goes into the Hall of Fame down the line is ridiculous.
No, I agree.
To make our own Hall of Fame. That's
Yeah, the Nothing Finer Hall of Fame would be more valid and important than the regular college football Hall of Fame for sure.
not Nas's first ballot.
Oh,
Nas is
100%.
first ballot, first inductee.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Staquavius with the fade,
Yes, specifically.
specifically. We're
That's
not
why
gonna
I
have,
said Staquavius and not Stetson.
yeah. But that's it for my SMU take here. We got sidetracked multiple times during that, but
Sure, that won't happen again.
no,
I
of
will
course
say
not.
it's you know what, summer break started for me today. So
Are you
Nice.
drinking?
oh yeah, hell yeah, brother. Got some PBRs. Let's go.
Well, see, I had a couple of Coors and then had just a little bit of Evan Williams in my Diet Coke, and now I'm trying to figure out which bottle on my desk am I gonna pour a little bit of, because I expected that Diet Coke and Evan Williams to last the whole podcast, and it did not.
Oof.
Oh, that the sound of you popping that cork. That was nice. That was sweet. That's the sound of summer right there. All
All right,
right, so
we have
yeah.
Mike next.
All right, so keeping with the religious school theme here, I think yeah, there we go. The SEC is obviously an everything conference at this point. Caleb mentioned that a little bit earlier with Tennessee being one of the schools there, but like for this particular section of it, I was thinking more from a football perspective. So, who's the biggest name school that's always talked about during realignment and expansion and all that? Notre Dame.
Clemson.
No, that's a different kind of religion. It's more of a cult than a religion.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. All right.
But yeah, Notre Dame. So we'll get to the geographic part of that in a little bit because obviously it doesn't matter because yeah, ACC has ruined that. But while Notre Dame hasn't won a Natty since 1988, well before any of us were born, the Irish
Still
are
more
one of the
recent than A&M.
yeah. Uh, so the Irish are one of the most tradition-rich programs in college football. If we're just talking from the 2010s through today, made 3 college football playoffs, 2 national title games as an independent. Excuse me. Uh, so they do have one of the biggest fan bases in the country. As we know, that the fans travel, or at least they're just kind of in all the different pockets of the country. Uh, Indiana arguably is a more southern state and culture than Kentucky and Missouri. So I think
Have you been
I was
to
gonna say,
DFE, Kentucky?
maybe not Kentucky.
Kentucky to me, Kentucky's more Appalachian than anything. That's a subculture.
Well,
Eh,
Central and Western Kentucky is very southern, but I do
Yeah.
get your point. One would argue Gainesville, also not very
not
southern.
Southern. Yeah.
So that's going to be a point I'm going to make for my second team
Okay.
as well. But
Dude, Florida's
we can
already in
all-
the SEC.
We can all agree that their Indiana's more southern even than Missouri, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay, beautiful. Like I talked about, fans are going to travel and be an asset to the SEC's TV revenue, helping each school increase their revenue and spending and all that. So there's that aspect of it as well. And then the last 2 regular season games in Georgia played against Notre Dame. Just like thinking about all the build up, the game itself, just everything that came with it. They felt like national championship atmospheres and just all the anticipation that came up with both of those games, 2017, 2019. It was just incredible. Like, I mean, it's really, for the most part, it's been unmatched, I think, just as like regular season games or non-conference games. So I mean, that's another aspect that can that they can bring. And unlike Tennessee, Notre Dame actually has beat a couple SEC teams worth a damn. So Georgia,
Got it.
You don't have to say that.
Georgia
You
in the
don't have to
Sugar
talk
Bowl.
about that. You don't have to talk about that game.
Well, that we're not gonna. I mean, we're not gonna count that, but they can, right?
Yeah, perfect.
But they did beat A&M to start the season, and A&M was like
I thought you said worth a damn, Mike.
A&M was a game away from playing in the SEC championship
Oh
They
yeah,
sure
that's true.
were.
They were. You right.
in a very down SEC year, but nonetheless, they
If they
were.
could have just, I don't know, crossed the goal line against
Yeah.
Texas.
Mhm.
Wasn't that hard. Obviously, we did it a few
A
times.
couple times.
Just
Well,
do
Trevor
something
Trevor
other
eats
than
in.
throw interceptions against Texas is
Mm,
what A&M could have done.
Right.
yeah. Last couple points here. Notre Dame is pretty good at men's and women's basketball and like the other Olympic sports. So there's something to be said for that. And then finally, the Pope is American, right? We've gone over this a couple times at this point. So he's
The
gonna look
Pope.
out for Notre Dame's conference. And again, it's established that the Pope did not go to Notre Dame. He went to Villanova, which I recently found out was a Catholic school. I had no idea.
Yeah,
Catholic
No
schools
idea.
are great at basketball.
that's true.
Yeah, I don't know why that. You know what? That might be worth a deep dive. Not on here necessarily, but just why are Catholic schools so good at basketball? So
I will say two points, neither of which are serious, both of which are funny.
Great.
Could you imagine those gold dome baseball helmets in a noon early May conference game in, I don't know, LSU, just blinding the entire crowd?
well, it's the same thing with like a September game at LSU if they were to come, play here too, right?
Right. That would be
A
wild.
death ray. A death ray.
But also, secondly, could you imagine? We're going to go back to LSU for this. Notre Dame at LSU, night game in Death Valley, and you have
Brian Kelly.
Oh yeah.
No. You got the
Ooh.
Pope. You got the Pope in one box, rolling
go.
up in the Pope mobile, and on the other side of the stadium, you got Trump rolling up in the Beast. Can you imagine? That would be the safest place on the planet.
Just don't let him get too close to JD Vance.
But
He's at Ohio State. We can hopefully
yeah. No, But could you imagine the Pope? First off, the Pope in Louisiana, very Catholic Southern state,
Oh yeah.
and Trump at an LSU game, a night game in Death Valley. The Pope's been hitting a little bit of that communion wine all afternoon. It's lit.
Oh yeah.
We need that. We need the Pope and Trump shaking hands at a night game at Death Valley.
Facts. That's absolutely what we need. You've convinced me. Never thought I'd say it. Notre Dame needs to be in the SEC.
because geography be damned. It does not matter.
Well, we've already established. Look, if California can sit in the Atlantic Coast Conference, it's already out the window.
But
I still, yeah.
Also, Notre Dame fits South Bend. That's enough. I don't
there
need
we go.
geography.
Yeah, that does it for me. All right, so guys, when you ask the question of who should replace Tennessee, you've got to ask what Tennessee contributes to the SEC to begin with. Okay, they are a founding member of the SEC, arguably the founding member because the SEC was founded in Knoxville. In football, you got a team that alternates between 8-5 mediocrity and 11-2, but not accomplishing anything, slightly better mediocrity. In basketball, Tennessee's had some recent success, but historically speaking, they haven't really been a force, except in women's basketball. But, who cares? In baseball, you've got a fairly successful team who consistently makes the NCAA tournament. Now, in Tennessee's case, usually is a fairly high seed, but mainly because they're in the SEC. Regardless, if you're going to replace them, you should replace them with a team that at least has a winning record and makes the tournament consistently in baseball, right? If you want to... That should be the bare minimum there. And then outside of the big three, you don't get a whole lot of consistent success from Tennessee. So allow me to introduce you to the Tulane Green Wave. Little bit of a dark horse pick, I understand, but they were
SEC team as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
Welcome back.
I said, they're not a founding member, but they were there right at the beginning. Let me read you their football records from the last few seasons: 9-5. 11-3, 12-2, 2-10, 7-6.
Let's take a pause at that 12-2 season though, because one important factor about that 12-2 season, they also hate Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams. They fit in.
Yeah, they do fit in. It's perfect. And look, if those records don't sound like Tennessee in the mid-2010s, I don't know what does.
Wait, how many times has Tulane lost to Georgia State at home?
I have no idea.
Check my
Probably at least
notes.
once.
I would actually say probably 0, but I will
Uh,
do some research.
yeah, yeah. Please do
Well, like Georgia
while I
State,
continue, because if
like I
that's
said,
the case, then they've got one over Tennessee.
Georgia State. They've only been a FBS team for like 15 years, maybe. So probably not.
Less than that, even I think.
Yeah.
All right.
They
So
have never
anyway,
played a game. Tulane has never lost to Georgia State at home.
there we go. Already off to a good start. Oh man, in basketball, Tulane is basically a non-factor, so it's more in line with historic Tennessee than the current, but still,
Burn.
it counts.
Yeah.
In baseball, they actually do consistently have winning seasons and some NCAA tournament bids. And then in other sports, other than sailing, they got basically nothing. Fitting, though, that the Tulane Green Wave is pretty consistent with the sailing championships. Being more serious for a second, they do
Is that
already.
a thing?
Yeah, yeah. Look it up.
Okay.
That's very prominent on their Wikipedia page. And as we know, Wikipedia is the most accurate and reliable source of information because anyone can edit it.
It's the original Twitter community notes.
Exactly. There we go. Yes, exactly.
Like that. Yeah.
On a more, by the way, has anyone tried doing research for this podcast by just tweeting out outlandish things and having people correct them?
No, but we should try it, actually.
It seems like it would be fun. On a more serious note, they do already have, from their previous time in the SEC, historic rivalries with LSU, Ole Miss, and Auburn. By the way, they already lead the series against Auburn, which is very funny to me.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So they'll fit right in there. So does everyone else in the SEC. If you make those the 3 protected games for them, you definitely have to move some things around. But I think you can make it work. You have Auburn play Georgia, Alabama, and Tulane every year. I don't think they're missing anything when you do that. LSU would have Arkansas, Alabama, Tulane. Ole Miss would have Miss State, Vanderbilt, Tulane. I think it works.
Ole Miss will take that in a heartbeat.
Oh,
yes. Yeah. I will say, the issue with Tulane joining the SEC, they may surpass Athens for best party town in the SEC being in New Orleans.
Yeah,
it's too big of a city, though.
Yeah, it's not like a college town.
It's not. It's
just
not.
Like Austin.
But it's a hell of a town.
It is. I'm just saying, Tulane didn't earn that, though. It would be that with or without Tulane.
Yeah.
2 of our first 3 schools we've talked about have a touchdown Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
Does SMU have a touchdown Jesus?
Wait, does Tulane have a touchdown Jesus?
So, like half a mile from campus, there's a Catholic church with a touchdown Jesus.
Oh my gosh, that's
yeah.
Awesome. I had no idea.
Does SMU have a touchdown? I'm Googling right now.
Yeah, I am too. We'll figure it out.
Learning is fun.
SMU does not have a touchdown Jesus.
Step your game up, boys.
Yeah. We were about to go 3 for 3. SMU, apparently not a Christian school.
Apparently not. Apparently Tulane is a more Christian school than SMU. Who would have thought?
All right. So we're going to get pretty far away from Christian schools with my second suggestion. But, I the point of this list was to actually have legitimate suggestions, and we're all just way too sarcastic for that.
No, I'm dead serious about it.
I may have made jokes about Tulane, but I that would be my serious pick.
SMU was half and half. I'll say that.
Okay, fair enough.
SMU was half and half. But my second suggestion here is 100% serious, and it's something that I actually put a legitimate, decent amount of time into, and that's the UNC Tar Heels. Just to get the jokes out of the way early, they have a coach surrounded in drama, football-wise.
Fits right in.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, this is like if Joey Freshwater got cuffed by a Tridell, is what we're dealing with.
Or like if
Belichick.
Joey Freshwater was 75 years old.
Right.
Yeah, 75-year-old Joey. Imagine Hugh Hefner dating a cheerleader and running a football program. Like that's what we're dealing with here. Because if you haven't heard this, Jordan publicly resigned from her adult recreational cheerleading squad a couple of weeks ago because helping Bill with the Tar Heels just took too much of her time to enjoy cheerleading.
Dang.
This is adult This is like if me and Mike joined a kickball team. That's what she's doing with cheerleading. anyways.
Too much
Is
going on.
quick is this like a Joe Biden situation where we have to ask who's really running the Tar Heel program?
It's Jordan, for
Is
sure.
there an auto pen coming up with plays?
Somebody's
The
just
people
booted
are
up
asking.
NCAA 25 and asking the coach.
Asking the coach, hey, coach, it's first and goal from the 2. Why are you talking about punting the football?
Only good things happen when you kick the ball.
But all right, so getting into a little bit more of the serious side. So they're the ACC's current everything school. I know a lot of people are probably going to say, well, Florida State. Here's the problem. Florida State's football program is more of a question mark than anything. I think Florida State's football program, potentially the biggest question mark in the conference, saying a lot.
They might as well have gotten the death penalty after 2023, the way they completely capsized the next year.
I will say Muschamp's son's first down did kill most of that team.
Facts. Shout out to Jackson Muschamp.
Jackson. I wanted to say John, and I knew it was wrong.
By the way, sorry to get on a tangent again, but my inside joke with my nephew all season in 2023 was that we were going to bench Carson Beck for Jackson Muschamp. It made me so happy when he got in the game. So happy.
That is a very much a winning moment. All right. So, UNC, the ACC's current everything school, multiple bowl games over the last few years, multiple 5 stars. Basketball, the UNC Tar Heels, you really don't have to say much else. I know they've been down a little bit since Roy Williams retired. How many times throughout history has UNC basketball been down?
Not very long.
Yeah, not very many times, and not for long. So, baseball. They are a legit contender of baseball. Made the College World Series last year. They've made the College World Series 8 times this century.
Wow.
And we're not talking about like hosting a regional or a super. We're talking about trips to Omaha. We're being honest, 8 trips to Omaha in 25 years is probably 6 more than any sane person wants to take.
Yeah.
It is Omaha.
In any other circumstance.
Right.
Yeah.
But they also have an 8-year postseason streak. They, I believe, are on a 4 or 5-year hosting streak. Like, they are a legit baseball school. They are regularly maintaining or improving their football, basketball. If they're down, it won't be for long. But also, here's an important factor with UNC and potentially being in the SEC. They're willing to spend money. Of the 3 sports I just talked about, they have a combined coaching salary, if you combine all 3 coaches, of $14.12 million. They have done stadium upgrades on their football stadium, an average of every 3 years over the last 10. They have a beautiful football stadium. They are the only blue in college sports that can contend with Ole Miss's powder blue.
Facts.
It would be a very easy SEC manufactured rivalry between North Carolina and South Carolina.
Yeah.
Like, I really think that UNC fits. Not even going to mention the fact that their mascot has alleged racist ties.
Always thought that.
According to the school, it's actually because of the naval history with the North Carolina coast. They pine tar coated the boats. The people that worked in getting pine tar were bare feet, and they always had black feet because of the pine tar. I don't know. It sounds racist. There was a Confederate regiment back in the day called the Tar Heels shortly after UNC was started. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm saying it's sketchy.
Just throwing that out there. Yeah.
But it fits with the SEC, if we're being honest.
Yeah, it does. And honestly, not that I like nicknames with racist ties, but I do like nicknames for teams that come from a place of like history
Yeah.
in the location. That's always been really cool to me and something I wish Georgia had, but I don't really know what you would do for Georgia. Talk about racist ties. Would it be the Georgia Cotton Pickers? I don't know.
Oh my God.
But
Well, there was a Civil War battle in Athens.
that's true.
Fun fact: the big hill behind the Mama's Boy in Watkinsville was actually the site of the Confederate artillery emplacement back in the day. Like you can walk behind Redneck Beach up to the hill, and there's like historical markers by the artillery emplacements.
Nice.
No
Well,
idea.
the city's also called Athens. You could do something with the Greek gods. And I'm getting ahead of myself.
Well, and then like in UNC also does not care about academics for athletes, but that's a whole nother
That's also true.
story.
Who would you? They're not there to play school.
Mm-mm.
Right, exactly. So SEC, SEC, SEC. That's more.
It
well,
just
Ohio State
means
said that
more
first.
outside of the classroom.
Yeah. All right. So my next pick, and I mean we've kind of crapped on them the entire time, but like
Because it's so much fun.
it really is, and that's really the reason why I have them in here because like if you're gonna kick out Tennessee, you got to have another punching bag that like universally everybody hates, right?
Oh yeah.
So it's been talked about before, even in different during different times of expansion and all that realignment. But if we're gonna kick out Tennessee, we need a school that is almost equally as insufferable. That's Florida State. I mean, they brought up several times, right? Uh, just fun fact: Deion Sanders is tied for third all time with 14 interceptions, with none other than Lee Corso. Lee Corso, geez.
One of them is the GOAT, and one coaches at Colorado.
Indeed.
I will say it's worked out for you that we keep bringing Florida State up as the punching bag in this podcast because Tennessee usually takes that role. So we've proven your point through this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the funny part about it, at least in my case, is I legitimately, when I scrolled through the doc, I just looked for the school. I didn't know that Florida State was on your list for being an insufferable punching bag. Like I scrolled through, I scanned Florida State. All right, can't choose them. All right, next.
Yeah. I mean, that was really like my big like criteria for it after Notre Dame is like we need somebody that everybody can like just like piss on and like that's Florida State like for sure. But the SEC already has one spoiled brat program in Texas last season, so I'm sure that the league can handle FSU as well, just with everything they've done with the ACC and all the litigation and all that they've done with the grant of rights and whatnot.
You could argue Tennessee is also a spoiled brat program, so it's just a 1-for-1 swap.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Tennessee is in the situation they're currently in because they're spoiled brats.
Mm-hmm. And then Texas A&M was seemingly okay with letting Texas in, so I'm sure Florida would. I mean, they kind of feel obligated to do the same, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope so. From Bobby Bowden through today, FSU has been mostly an elite program. I mean, more so in like the 80s, 90s, mid 2000s, all that.
Florida State had the longest streak of bowl games until Willie Taggart.
Yeah, I think that seems right.
Like until Jameis left the program, Florida State had the longest streak of bowl games ahead of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It was
Georgia,
or it was Florida State, Virginia Tech, Georgia, and then obviously Florida State sucked, Virginia Tech sucked, Georgia's still there.
But yeah, and you kind of mentioned that stuff too. But Mike Norvell, arguably easier to hate than Bobby Hill in Knoxville.
Arguably.
I mean,
specifically since the 2023 season ended, yes.
Yeah, for sure. And then if I'm going to say something nice about FSU, the Tomahawk Chop started there, and like their mascots that they have, and I'm not even going to say the Chiefs name because I'm way too gone at this
It's
point.
either Osceola or Osceola, and
I thought it was Osceola.
I'm pretty sure it's Osceola.
But in Renegade, I can say that.
Based on how Florida State has been performing the last little while, it's Osceola.
But those are like dope mascots. It's not going to be as good as a live mascot, but it would be the second best live mascot in the conference. So that's cool. And then FSU is usually at least average in basketball and are usually a super regional host in baseball. I didn't do like the super deep research on that, but like I know they are this year, and they usually as an ACC school they're at least hosting something in baseball. So there's that as well. And finally, FSU is in fact in the southeastern United States and arguably more southern than Florida, Mizzou, Oklahoma, and Kentucky.
Yeah, so Florida is Gainesville. I have more experience in than any of the like Columbia, Norman, or Lexington. Um, and Gainesville actually has more hills than you would think. Oddly, for Central Florida,
Okay.
That is odd.
it is. But at the same time, if I wanted to look at concrete squares, I could go to a military base, and it's concrete squares and then like 2 or 3 glass buildings, and that's it. You've seen the University of Florida. Top down, left to right. It's concrete squares and like 2 glass buildings.
Wow.
And the swamp, not impressive as a stadium.
Oh no.
Interesting.
I've watched 3/4 of a football game there. The stadium itself kind of sucks. The Tom Petty stuff's cool, but he was also kind of rapey as an artist with his lyrics back in the day. So I don't even know if I give you a free pass on the Petty stuff.
Yep.
Just had to sneak some Florida hate in there.
Oh, you got to. You got to.
Yeah, but I mean, if we're gonna swap out one program, we can easily bag on for another. I mean, Florida State would be an easy swap.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can't think of any reason why that wouldn't work. All right, but let's be real. When you've all had some great picks and stuck very close to the southeastern United States for them. But let's be real. The one question you don't need to ask when you're deciding who should join the SEC is, are they in the southeastern region of the United States? Because if realignment has taught us anything, none of that matters whatsoever. So how about this? Instead of bringing in a team to replace Tennessee that'll have some success and bring some interesting rivalry matchups and would be relatively cheap to arrange travel for games, why not throw all that out the window? Conferences
Go
are
full
more
Big
about
Ten?
yeah, no, conferences are just vibes these days anyway. They're not about physical location. Come on. And who fits the vibe of the SEC better than the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors? You want toughness, you want physicality, you want old school athletic competition. Why not bring in a school whose only recognized national championships are in volleyball? And then you instantly octuple the number of volleyball national championships the SEC holds. So that's a win right there.
They fit in with Vanderbilt as far as stadium construction goes.
Yeah. Funny because I was just about to mention they've got some beef with Vanderbilt for destroying them in their own place and then losing to them again at that construction site in Nashville just a couple years ago that happened. And while Stetson Bennett, you want to bring up other history with other programs. While Stetson Bennett was winning back-to-back national championships in football, Kanai Akana was winning back-to-back volleyball national championships. The same 2 years, 21 and 22.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do. It's all the wrestling I watch, all these tribal names. You might think that they don't have any built-in rivalries with SEC teams. I mentioned Vanderbilt already, and you can't tell me that they're not bloodthirsty for vengeance against Georgia after what happened in the 2008 Sugar Bowl.
I'm sure that like 5 people within the state of Hawaii remember that game.
Yeah,
and I say that because after the government satellites set fire to Maui, and then there was an eruption of 1,000 feet of a volcano the other day, the people from Hawaii can't afford to live there anymore.
That's fair.
It's a military base and rich white people that fled California.
That's fair. But those people really want to get back to Georgia, even though most of them haven't lived there that whole time. Oh man, they do also have history with Tulane, who is my other contender to join the conference, and that counts. So yeah, why not get the furthest possible college football team from the Southeast and put them directly in the Southeastern Conference? And when you think about it, depending on where you're standing, Hawaii is the most southeastern part of the U.S. there is.
It's for sure the most southern.
Yeah.
And if it was,
If you're standing in California and California is your baseline, then it's also the furthest east.
okay,
Well,
Are you saying
I
the
take
Earth
that back.
isn't
If you're
flat?
standing in Alaska, yeah.
all right, hold on. I got to pull up a map. Where's the international date line?
Oh yeah. Well, hey, who cares? It's wherever I want it to be.
Um, yep, Hawaii. All right, well, all right. Has anybody ever looked at the actual line of the international date line?
Can't say that I have.
Yeah, not that I can remember. No.
All right, so y'all know how counties within the state of Georgia are shaped, just kind of on vibes.
Yeah.
Bro,
Yeah.
that's how the date line goes. So it
Oh,
goes
I see. It's very squiggly, I guess, to make up for
in just all right. So you can go directly south of Honolulu for I don't know,
a while, a little
like
while.
400 miles directly south of Honolulu is another day.
Wow.
Hmm.
Love how that works. I'm looking at the shape right now, and it looks like a cliff with a Star Wars battle droid hanging off of it. It.
Or, all right. So I'm assuming most of our listeners are in Georgia. Have you ever driven from Atlanta to Chattanooga? You know how you go from like Georgia to Tennessee to Georgia to Tennessee to Georgia to
Yeah.
Tennessee? That's how the international date line looks in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah. If you've ever driven like in the corner area between Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee,
Yeah.
if you're there's you get some back and forth between Eastern and Central. It's the same kind of thing. But
Yeah, how your phone goes nuts with time. Imagine that with whole ass days.
yeah.
So nothing makes sense. Time's not real, geography's fake.
Why not bring
Hawaii's
in Hawaii?
perfect in the south. Could you all right, so Hawaii going to play a game in Athens.
Yes. And then Florida having to fly from Gainesville the next week.
That's
But just Hawaii, like the fans in Honolulu trying to wake up for that game. There's no tailgating for a 6 a.m. kickoff.
Do you think Georgia fans would travel
Yes,
to
Oh,
the
yeah.
away game in Honolulu?
yeah.
I,
Oh,
I
for sure.
guarantee you. Bro, there's a lot more to do in Honolulu than South Bend or
Facts.
Columbia, Missouri.
Facts.
You telling me in mid-November I can go to Honolulu and call it football? Hell yeah!
Like a high school ass stadium. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do
Where
it.
can I rent a
Cram
surfboard?
everybody
Get
in
my
there.
ass on the beach. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. Just little inside the park baseball. We're gonna be doing these 3-person, one a week episodes for the next few weeks. Got some family stuff going on that's kind of pulling me away from the house on weekends. So that's how we're doing it. I know I am behind on getting the next Big Ten SEC Challenge video up. I realized that about 5 minutes ago. So I'm going to work on doing that today, if not tomorrow. And we're just going to try and keep up with it. But like I said, I got some family stuff that's kind of taking my attention away for 3 to 4 days a week right now. As soon as that's over, we're going to get back to 2 a week, getting all the videos put out on time. But I'm asking for a little bit of grace right now. But regardless, I don't really care because I kind of run this. So we're going to do whatever works for me. And currently that's all 3 of us drinking and talking shit on Thursday nights. So we love you. We appreciate you. But we're just gonna do what works. But most important thing is always nothing finer in the land.
Rest in peace, Harambe.
God, I was gonna. That's the thing I was gonna say. Dicks out.